Good evening. I'd like to call the April 13th, 2022 Town Board meeting to order. Ms. Margot, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Christo?
Present.
Mrs. Miller-Herrera?
Present.
Mr. Dodson?
Present.
Mr. Mastriani?
Present.
Mrs. Collins?
Present.
5 present.
The quorum is present. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Christo, will you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to reserve any remarks I have to the end of the meeting because we have a very nice presentation to make. So if the board will join me.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to read the proclamation. Whereas the town of Rotterdam and its residents desire to focus attention on noteworthy occasions and events within our town, and whereas the Shelmont girls varsity basketball team, through hard work and perseverance, achieved outstanding success and won the Section 2 Class B championship with a win of 73-35. Furthermore, taking them to win their first ever Class B regional championship with a victory of 54-30. And whereas the Shelmont girls varsity basketball team went on to become the Class B state champions and finished the season with a dramatic win of 56-54, taking down the undefeated team of Waterloo in the school's first ever trip to the New York State Public High School Athletic Association Class B Final Four. And whereas after winning the Class B state championship, the Shelmont girls varsity basketball team was ranked number 4 in the entire state of New York and ranked number 1 for the New York Division B. And whereas the players of this outstanding team that contributed to this year's success are Sienna Hallberg, Michaela Frank, Gianna Cirilla, Peyton Graver, Justina Spezza, Carissa Antone, Sarah Kinlan, Ariana Brandon, Haley Buckhart, Ashley Boyd, and Dana Smith. And whereas we also recognize the Shelmont girls varsity basketball head coach, Jeffrey Van Hosen, named Coach of the Year, and assistant coaches Casey Haar and Joelle Litz for their guidance and leadership, which contributed to the team's success. Now, therefore, I, Molly A. Collins, Supervisor of the Town of Rotterdam, on behalf of the Town Board, Town Administration, and all our town residents, do hereby commemorate the achievement of the Shelmont girls varsity basketball team with a proclamation from the Town of Rotterdam as a token of our great esteem for their team's accomplishment and as a statement of our firm belief that fosters values of teamwork, cooperation, and sportsmanship-like conduct in our youth. Okay? So would Jeffrey Van Hosen please come up?
Coach.
All right. Stay here for a second, okay? We'd like to give you the proclamation and then this picture of your team. We're also presenting the team and Shelmont with a plaque that they can display, but we've made a duplicate and it'll hang in our hallway to honor the team and their accomplishments. Okay? Town clerk laminated some of their big highlights that were in the newspapers so that they too can go and show them someplace, all right? We'll be calling up the assistant coaches and all of the members of the team too, so as you hear your name, please step forward. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Dana Smith. Come on down. Michaela Frank. Names here and your picture. Job well done. Sarah Kinley. Coach, I'll hand it to you then. Congratulate her on our behalf.
I have Casey Hart. Gianna Cirilla. Ariana Brandon. My job is done.
Justina Spezza.
Congratulations. Nice job.
Congratulations. Nice job.
Congratulations. Sienna Hallberg. Nice job. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Carissa Antoni.
Yes. Thank you.
Ashley Boyd. Nice job, Ashley. Congratulations.
Assistant coach Joelle Litz.
Hi, Joel. Congratulations. Nice to see you.
Peyton Graber. And Haley.
I'd like one more round of applause for everybody.
Behind them.
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, you guys go up front, we'll go behind you. Because we're numbers.
Gotta stand if you're still tall.
You just had a fancy dinner before. Yeah,
According to the motion,
Okay. I went before.
So you're going to do the 126?
126A.
and then we'll go to the privilege.
Okay, gotcha. So again, public statement of town board members concerning status of any plan to consider installation of water meters.
Is there any discussion? This is the one, and I hope everybody marked it on the sheet. The second or the third whereas has been struck. And in the second whereas, it reads, the supervisor of the town informed the community of the compliance application that was a result of an application made by the prior administration. Okay? So as long as everybody has it written the same way, is there any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani on the question. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passed.
Madam Supervisor, at this time I'd make a motion to add a resolution to tonight's agenda to be numbered 126.22A sub 1.
I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to read through the resolution, please.
I'll second the motion.
Sorry. I can read it. Would you prefer I read it?
Thank you.
I will do so. The public has the right to know.
Can-
Could you just please tell me the resolution number that you're calling
126.22A sub 1.
it? A sub 1?
Yep.
Thank you. I didn't get that.
Last two, you got any more in case people want?
I'm sorry, I don't. I'll read it. It'll make it a little easier.
I'll make copies while she reads it.
Whereas New York State Environmental Conservation Law, Article 15, quote, Water Resources, unquote, Title 15, Water Supply was enacted by the State of New York, effective February 15th, 2012, to govern the permitted withdrawal of water by all municipal entities, and whereas the newly created New York State water withdrawal permitting process was required to commence any project in connection with the proposed water withdrawal pursuant to New York State Environmental Conservation Law, Section 15-1501 sub C. And whereas the Town of Rotterdam Water District 5 sought the approval of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, NYSDEC, to modify the existing water withdrawal permit in order to create well number 5, to safeguard part of the town's water supply in the event of future flooding of the Mohawk River after careful consideration and study, which resulted in the New York Rising Community Reconstruction Program conceptual plan, which was created in the wake of Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Irene, and Tropical Storm Lee. And whereas in accordance with the New York State Office of State Comptroller's guidance regarding intermunicipal cooperation, meant to advance a culture of cooperation and to provide for state financial incentives, including state funding for feasibility studies, the Town of Rotterdam sought to, another typo, I apologize, I wrote it quickly, a modification of an existing water withdrawal permit in 2019 pursuant to 6 NYCRR 601.19 to allow for an intermunicipal agreement to provide water interconnection with the town of Guilderland to assist under emergency conditions, and later for the sale of water, subject to a memorandum of agreement signed in accordance with New York State General Municipal Law, Section 115, also 118A, Article 5G, Municipal Cooperation, and Town Law Articles 3 and 3A. And whereas to date, the Town of Rotterdam has not sought a comprehensive study of the town's water system pursuant to New York State General Municipal Law, Section 9 sub 5, excuse me. Whereas the Town of Rotterdam has been unable to reach an agreement with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation regarding the creation of well number 6, as DEC has sought to force the town to implement residential water metering, and a modification to the town's water withdrawal permit has not been granted. And whereas Regulation 6 NYCRR 601.19 sub E specifically
Okay, take a breath, that's all right.
I'm used to reading. Specifically creates 2 classes of public water systems. First, a public water supply system created after April 1st, 2013 requires a mandatory installation of water meters and does not allow New York State DEC the ability to exercise discretion. Secondly, for public water systems like the town's created prior to April 1st, 2013, New York State DEC may require water meters where, quote, the department determines it is necessary to protect the environment, public health, safety, and welfare, and to ensure the proper management of the water of the state, which is a discretionary action on the part of NYSDEC. And whereas it is unclear to the town board what methodologies statistics, metrics, or opinions were utilized by New York State DEC when it assessed the town's public water system pursuant to the 5-prong test, as subsequently determined water meters were no longer discretionary, but rather would mandatorily be required to be installed at all residential and commercial units in the town due to the purported necessity to protect the environment, public health, safety, and welfare, and to ensure the proper management of the waters of the state. And whereas the town board of the town of Rotterdam does not find New York State DEC has properly determined water metering is in fact required under 6 NYCRR 601.19 sub E in a legally permissible manner. And whereas the town board of the town of Rotterdam, in an effort to allow clarification and education to the board, residents, and interested members of the public about the state governmental process, invites representatives from New York State DEC Region 4 in the spirit of the state comptroller's culture of cooperation to present their findings of necessity to protect the environment, public health, safety, and welfare, and to ensure the proper management of waters of the state during public hearing of this municipal body, so the board, residents, and interested members of the public may be better informed about the proposed New York State DEC plan for the town's requested modification of the water withdrawal permit, its foundation and analysis, and so members of the public may be heard both for and against any such plan the town would be a party to. And therefore, be it resolved, the town board of the town of Rotterdam hereby determines the proposed water withdrawal permit water meter implementation plan shall be submitted for consideration to the public, and a public hearing shall be scheduled for April 27th, 2022. Section 2, the town clerk is hereby directed to publish such notice in accordance with Section 30 of Town Law, comply with all requirements of New York State Public Officers Law, Article 7, Open Meetings Law, and to publish in the official newspaper of the town of Rotterdam on April 16th, 17th, 23rd, and 24th of 2022 the following public notice. Please take notice. The town of Rotterdam will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, April 27th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the John F. Curvin Government Center, 1100 Sunrise Boulevard, Rotterdam, New York, 12306. The public hearing is open to the public to attend in person, to listen and comment for the following purpose: the proposed water meter implementation plan. So that's what I've asked to add on to tonight's agenda. I'm doing so in light of the other resolutions that were added, which seem to muddy the waters and cause confusion.
So the proposed water meter implementation plan, what plan are you referring to?
The one that the supervisor posted on the town website after the March meeting that,
December 31st.
it's on the website. The supervisor's office posted both the draft New York State DEC metering plan for 2019 as well as an approved New York State DEC metering plan for 2022. It was posted first on a separate page and then secondly on the page called What's New Water Metering Information, and was moved to that page on March 21st, 2022.
All right, are we doing discussion on this?
Well,
Well, there's
you do
been
accept
a
my
motion,
second.
but we have to
You
do
heard me,
a
my
second.
second.
There has to be a second.
I second.
He seconded.
Councilmember Christo second. Now on discussion.
So,
Go ahead. Go ahead. Floor's yours. Floor's yours.
I guess to begin this discussion, the fact that we're having this discussion creates the confusion. The reason we introduced Sunshine Resolution 12622B was to clarify the difference between calling for a public hearing, which I don't even believe we're close to having a public hearing, and the subtlety of a public information meeting. You know, a public information meeting is, I believe, what we're after here, and that's why under Sunshine Resolution 12622B, we rejected the use of a public hearing, okay, because again, it confuses our public. We're not making decisions at this point in time on water metering. What we're making decisions on at this point in time is what is the town's plan for moving forward to be in compliance with permits that have been issued by the New York State DEC. The plan that's being referred to is indeed on our website. The plan is for a 10-year plan, and basically the first 5 years of that plan is leak detection and water conservation initiative. There's nothing in that plan that says anything about the town metering at this point in time. Metering indeed is a contentious issue in this town, but more importantly, it comes with it a significant cost. The conversation that needs to be had in our town and with the DEC is there has been reports done. We recently received a comprehensive report that the previous administration commissioned with our consultant that identifies improvements that are needed in our water system. The approach that this town board is making to regulatory agencies, our political representatives, regulatory agencies, is we have our hands full with where we are right now. A phased approach and implementation of a leak detection program to reduce the amount of leakage that we have in our system, in addition to educating the public relative to how we use our water, and then moving forward with loans and grants to improve our water system, starting with the ability to isolate our large diameter transmission mains that we're unable to do at this time in selected locations of our town that can result in the draining of our water storage tanks, in addition to let's get Altamont Avenue fixed. How many water main breaks do we need on Altamont Avenue? Okay, it's embarrassing for the town of Rotterdam to be on the news because we have this aging infrastructure that we refuse to take care of. So the approach again would be to reach out to our elected representatives to provide support letters, in addition to we're very good at doing grant applications and loan applications here, been very successful with it, so we'll continue with that. We have a great staff that is able to do that. And we continue going down the road, educating our public with public information meetings. And when the time comes to have a public hearing to actually decide on metering, and the borrowing of money for metering will indeed come down the road at some point in time after the 5 to 6 year mark, unless maybe we demonstrate to the DEC that we do have the ability to constrain ourselves on the water that we use at our well field to prevent us from having to increase the size of our transmission mains from 20 inch to 30 or 36 inch at a cost of over $30 million. That's exactly what our public needs to decide, and I wholeheartedly agree with Council Member Miller Herrera on government can be very contentious. You know, America is founding on debate, and that's exactly what we need to have in public information meetings over the next 1 to 4 years. Thank you.
Madam Supervisor, if I may.
Absolutely.
I heard comments about whether or not this body is truly collaborative. Well, I have asked in the past to go into executive session to discuss things with our colleagues that are appropriate for executive session, that was denied. Now one of my colleagues is calling for a public hearing, okay? Mr. Dodson, you made a very eloquent opinion and statement, and I respect your comments, but I also respect Ms. Miller Herrera's position. And if my colleague believes that the public needs to be part of this process, because that's what I defend is the process, then I'm going to collaborate, and I seconded this motion, and I urge you all to allow the public to speak, and we can have an opportunity to hear exactly what they do know, where they're informed and where they're misinformed. But I think this is very eloquently laid out. I think she brings up very good points, and she's very specific about what the public hearing is about, and it's a relative comment. So I urge you, if you are truly collaborative, and if you truly believe that the public has a right to know, that you accept this motion and pass it. Thank you.
I do not, I love the language of this, but I will not vote for it because it gives the false impression that there is a plan that we're pursuing and that there needs to be a public comment period. That's Jonathan, if you could correct me if I'm wrong. Public comment is part of the process of when a major plan is introduced to the public, and there's an opportunity for the public to comment on that. By passing this resolution, we're giving the impression that we're pursuing this course of action. The message tonight is that we're not. And the public always has an opportunity to speak at our town board meetings. We've been flooded with emails and phone calls and text messages. The public comment language it denotes a certain step in the process. At every town board meeting, we have the opportunity for public comment privilege of the floor, which we're about to do now, and we're hoping to address people's concerns as soon as we pass these resolutions.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, if I could be heard, if no one else wishes to speak for a first time. Mr. Dodson says the discussion creates confusion and that a public hearing is a subtlety that we don't understand. And maybe I don't, 3 years of college, 3 years of law school, maybe I don't know the difference between a public information session and a public hearing. But what I do know is that we shouldn't wait 1 to 4 years to have these public information sessions. So call my public hearing whatever you want. But I would like to hear from the DEC. I would like to hear from the engineers that this town has engaged to engage in these discussions with the DEC. On February 28th, the town's engineers sent a letter asking for an extension of time to provide information, providing for the approval of the submitted potable water metering plan. We submitted a plan. There's ongoing discussions with DEC. I want to know what they are. I don't want to hear what Mr. Dodson's interpretation of those discussions are, because I haven't been able to get a straight answer from anyone. It doesn't matter where you fall politically. I don't care if you're a Republican, conservative, independent, blank, Democrat, whatever. I want to know what is happening. And I think it is our duty to ask DEC to be present and talk to us. Ask our engineers to be here and explain to us where we are in this process. Why are we asking for extensions of time for our metering plan if we don't have a metering plan? I'm confused. I think everybody's confused. And without having a public available information session, hearing, whatever you want to call it, I don't understand what's going on, and I don't know how you expect our residents to know what's going on. I don't have an engineering degree like Mr. Dodson. Maybe that's where my confusion comes.
That's our duty, is to, we have every right to reach out to the DEC and to get that information correct and to correctly convey it to the public and not to confuse them. So
absolutely. And
I will be in conversations with the DEC.
Well, I wasn't done.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I mean, to be clear, that's a very accurate statement. When I foiled all information from DEC relative to any water metering plan, I got nothing back. And I know that's not accurate, because later I saw things that came back, and I saw information. I saw correspondence between Mr. Dodson and DEC, where he urged DEC to force the town of Rotterdam to put water meters on our houses at $600 a pop in 5 years, because we were trying to avoid our obligation. So until I get an accurate set of facts that I can make a decision about, or I can advise the residents who elected me to this position, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but this is all I can figure out to do. If I can't get the information from a Freedom of Information law request, if I can't get it from the supervisor and deputy supervisor, then I would like to hear from the people who have been working on this. I don't want hearsay, I want it firsthand. And I think this is the only way the public gets to hear it, gets to respond to it, and maybe gets looped in on what's actually going on, because I don't know. I don't feel like I'm getting a fair answer out of this administration. Maybe I didn't get a fair one out of the last administration either. I don't know, but I want to know, and I'm sick of this. I'm sick of hearing one story on Channel 10, another story in the newspaper. I want to know, and I don't want to hear it through somebody else's opinion, interpretation, or their lens. I want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. I would like to hear it from DEC. I would like to hear it from Prime Engineering, who I believe is now AG Engineering. I want to know, and I think everybody deserves the answers.
Any other discussion?
Any further question?
So this is on the motion to add it to the
Yes.
agenda.
That, okay, will the clerk call the roll? Mr. Christo?
In the spirit of transparency and collaboration, I vote yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dotson?
In the spirit of making sure there's not confusion, we have a Sunshine Resolution 12622B that specifically encouraged public input at public information meetings, not public hearings. I vote no.
Mr. Mastriani?
I vote no as well. Ms. Miller, I encourage you to reach out to the DEC as well and to convey what you learned to the public, and I don't think we need a public hearing in order to be able to do that. I think we will do that transparently as we move along today into tomorrow into our next meeting, and we encourage the public to reach out to us and to comment on town board meetings and voice their concerns and opinions.
Mrs. Collins?
No, and I'd like to echo what some of the other board members have said. I think we give this residents an opportunity to speak out at privilege of the floor at every meeting. We have returned, I don't know, maybe 50, 75 phone calls and emails. And I think public information is very important. And that could have started way back in 2019 or whenever it was first brought forward. So I'm voting no.
3 no and 2 yes.
And the motion does not pass. Okay, Sunshine Resolution number 126.22B. The clerk will read.
We encourage public input at a public information meetings.
Any discussion?
Yes. Madam Supervisor, I would ask that we add a date to have these public information meetings. I don't think just generically saying we should have some in the next 1 to 4 years meets the needs of our community.
When would you prefer them to be information meetings at the same time as a board meeting? Would you like us to schedule the meetings on a
I'd like to
Wednesday when we're not meeting as a town board?
I think we do it as a work session on April 27th, 2022, following the close of the regular board meeting, just as we do with budget meetings.
Was that a formal motion to amend?
She's adding.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Are we going to continue to have discussion on this?
Well, the motion's been made, so yes,
There could be other considerations before this motion is made.
Okay,
That's not how motions
There's
work.
been a motion to amend in a second, so we're now on the motion to amend. That's the discussion.
Was it to amend or she wanted to add? I thought she said.
It's to amend the
Still an
resolution.
amendment.
To add the date of
Yes.
That's
April
it. Okay, thank
27th,
you.
have a public information work session after close of the regular board meeting on April 27th. If I
Yeah.
understood it correctly.
We don't have to close the meeting, it'll still be a public meeting, people will have access.
After our business.
There is no plan there is no immediate action or proposal to move forward with water meters. What would we be discussing at the subsequent meeting that we can't discuss now?
I don't, why are we making a resolution for public input at a public information meeting if we're not actually scheduling a meeting?
So Joel, that's where I'd like to interject here is the town board has considered, and I'd like to consider actually having town hall meetings throughout our town. I advocate in the next months coming that we actually have the opportunity to go to different areas of our town, starting at potentially District Number 3 Fire Department or the Senior Center, and engage in active public information meetings. Go to District Number 2 Fire Department. We could go to Fire District Number 6. And then let's not leave out Rotterdam Junction. Let's go down to their fire department. And I encourage and advocate that our town board members considering have an additional meeting every month. I don't care if we do it through the summer, and we spend the time that Council Member Miller Herrera is asking for. And let the town commit to at least one meeting a month, specifically talking about issues in our town, and if water meter happens to be one of those issues, that would be fantastic.
I believe we're already scheduled to be at Rotterdam Junction on May 11th, according to the calendar, so let's add that as well.
Well, you actually have a motion to
I
just
do.
do
We'll vote on that one, and then I'll add the next one.
All right, so I don't know why you don't withdraw the first motion.
There's a motion, there's a second to amend the resolution to add
April 27th.
public information session, if that's the correct word, on April 27th, immediately following the
or at the end of the regular business meeting of the town board.
And I seconded that motion.
Yes.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
To amend, yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
No.
Mr. Mastriani?
No, we have public comment, privilege of the floor at the beginning of all meetings, and I do like Deputy Supervisor Dodson's suggestion that we hold town hall meetings without agendas, where we simply show up at a location in your neighborhood and take your questions and have informal discussions about what's going on. If there is a planned proposal, yes, we should have public information sessions, but there is no plan moving forward with water meters, and the objective tonight is to put to bed any idea that we are pursuing that.
Mrs. Collins?
No.
3 no, 2 yes, does not pass.
I'll make a motion to add a public information session to be held at the Rotterdam Junction Fire Department on May 11th, and invite special guests, New York State DEC Region 4 and KB Engineering, to present information about the process of water withdrawal permit modification, including but not limited to water metering implementation planning.
I'll second that motion.
A motion was made by Councilmember Miller Herrera, seconded by Councilmember Christo. Discussion, but before we do that, Ms. Miller Herrera, could you please tell me again, did you say the firehouse in Rotterdam Junction?
Yes, I believe we're already scheduled to be there for a
Yes,
town
that's
board
why I
meeting
wanted
that
to make
night.
sure. Okay, thank you. All right, now discussion?
Yes, Madam Supervisor.
Go ahead.
I believe that the discussion is that there is no plan, but then we're told there is a plan, and that over 10 years, maybe 9 years, maybe 6 years, we're gonna be asked to add these water meters. There might be requirements that we take out loans in order to pay for them and all of these things. I think the public has a right to know now what the process will be, where we are going, and if we're talking about having public information sessions, they should in fact be public information sessions, not just people asking questions about something that is, as the deputy supervisor called it,
So if we
creating
tru-
confusion.
If we truly are going to say what Mr. Dodson said, you've got a firehouse, you got a scheduled meeting already, and we're offering a public information meeting after that meeting. To me, it's a no-brainer, unless we truly don't want public information meetings. So if we truly do, there's no reason to vote no on this thing.
Any other discussion?
This would be a public information meeting to discuss modifying the water withdrawal permit? Would that be the objective or the basis of our conversation?
Including but not limited to the water meter implementation plan proposed by KB Engineering and in conjunction with DEC, and inviting them both as guests to discuss the process.
I do have one question, and please don't take this the wrong way. You were here in 2019 when the first application went through to the DEC for water withdrawal and all that. At that time, do you remember any public information meetings being held? Because I was coming to the meetings that time because I was very worried about selling water to Gilderland, and also about how the 5th well was being used, because I knew that in the summertime with the 4 wells running, we could barely keep the water pressure up in the eastern side of town. So, and please don't take this personally, I could have missed the meeting, but do you remember all of the public information meetings held back then in 2019 when this really all began? And I say it with the utmost respect.
And respectfully, I will respond. No, I don't remember there being any requests for public information sessions. I remember Mr. Dodson coming to privilege of the floor regularly, asking questions and getting answers from the supervisor. And now here we are, where people are unhappy with how that process went. But we're gonna continue to do it when the public has very clearly said that was not adequate representation or transparency. Why are we not listening to people? You don't feel that that was appropriate, but you're gonna continue that practice
I
moving
don't-
forward?
I'll be honest with you, I don't, and again, I don't mean this with any disrespect, but I don't remember on the website, and again, it wasn't like I monitored it 24/7, but was that report in 2019 posted on the town website like we did? And again, I'm not pointing
No,
responsibility. Responsibility is ridiculous. We're here to fix a problem, we have to move forward. I agree with Councilmember Christel. To point fingers is useless. We have to take what we have now and move forward. And I believe with privilege of the floor and these meetings that we can hold, and if you want to be, and we haven't
I'm
gone
gonna
to
answer.
Mrs. Miller Herrera, we have
what?
asked you to go to different meetings. and
Which
everything.
meetings?
The finance
No.
meeting, okay?
No.
And now.
No, no.
And.
We were asked to schedule a finance meeting.
Right, and, yes, and also usually.
Yes,
I
because
will-
I'm still waiting for Attorney Tingley to provide the information about how we're going to run the committee meetings, but that's a separate aside.
Right.
It is not a
So-
debate, and let's stay on topic.
So anyway.
Supervisor Collins, you asked me questions.
Yes.
I want to respond.
Okay.
I don't remember any public information in 2019. I don't in 2017, and I don't remember them in 2015 when well number 5 came online, but I was not on the board at that point. I don't remember if your husband could tell us that. He was on the New York Rising Committee.
And so was Lisa Dudley.
Correct. I'm sure that they could give us more information than I have about what public information was disseminated at that point. I was not on the board. So I want to be clear that no, it wasn't, and if we as a board feel that that was inadequate, we would be remiss to continue that conduct.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christel?
Yes, to schedule the meeting at Rotterdam Junction.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes, I think that would be, what a great kickoff to start down in the junction and begin the conversation. That's the great place, I believe, to engage our public, and it would be great if throughout the summer and into the fall that we continue to have this great debate in the town of Rotterdam.
Mr. Mastriani?
I agree with the spirit of the motion. Assuming you can get the engineers and DEC present, there's a lot of time in between now and then, and there's plenty of opportunity to get the word out, what we all discover. But we are, I would vote yes, I hope you can set that up. Hope you can reach out to DEC and get the answers that you want. And we can, let the public know that we are not pursuing water meters, and we're going to fight them every opportunity we can.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes, in the spirit of cooperation, I vote yes.
Wow.
Making progress.
See how easy it is?
That amends it.
That amended the resolution, so now
Yeah, we
you
can
vote
vote
on
on
the
it.
resolution with the amendment.
All right. Is everybody on the same page? We are now voting on Sunshine Resolution 126.22B with the amendment that we have a public information session after the town board meeting in Rotterdam Junction on May 11th of 2022. Is that agreeable? That's what everybody understood? Any discussion?
Madam Supervisor, I think this is momentous. This is probably the first occasion where we can all seem to find a common ground. And while I'm not excited to do it in the Junction because I feel those meetings are really an opportunity for members and residents of the Junction to come out and speak with us and not, drive all the way over here on a Wednesday night, I look forward to the discussion, and I will personally draft a letter to send to DEC and reach out to KB Engineering and ask them to be there that night. I would ask that any information that has been provided to the town, by the town, created by the town, received by the town, be put on the website so that everyone has access prior to that public information session, so that everyone can come fully aware of what is going on and be able to speak, get answers, ask eloquent, educated questions about what's going on.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes,
5 yes.
motion passed.
I'll second it.
Okay, wait a second.
I don't think we had a motion.
Wait, what happened?
We didn't have a motion.
Oh, I thought there was a motion.
Nobody offered the
All
resolution.
right, so who makes the motion?
And in the spirit of cooperation, I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Right,
motion by
Jack
Mr. Dodson.
I'll second it.
Second
Thank
by
you.
Mr. Mastriani. Anything on the motion?
I think I already said everything.
Please call the roll.
So do I need to call the roll again?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes, thank
Motion
you.
passes. Oh my gosh. Resolution 126.22C. Clerk will read the resolution.
Townwide water leak detention initiative.
Anything on the question? Any discussion, rather? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make, I'll second.
Who's first?
Motion by Mr. Mastriani. Motion by Mr. Christou, seconded by Mr. Dodson. On the question?
Madam Supervisor, I do have a question. Section 2 indicates that you be authorized to request assistance from the city of Schenectady in relation to this initiative. And I'm wondering what that looks like so that we're all aware.
I can answer that question if you'd like. The city of Schenectady has an active leak detection program and the equipment. They do a pretty good job of detecting leaks in their system. There's a lot that we can learn in the town of Rotterdam in training of our people. Leak detection can be done by private consultants. My recommendation to our town is to train our own people to do leak detection so it's done on a regular basis and also to control cost.
And have we already made arrangements with the city of Schenectady? Is there some agreement that we need to approve?
Not yet, no.
Councilmember Miller Herrera brings up a good point, and yes, we will have to enter into a memorandum of agreement or an understanding with the city to see if we can make this cooperative effort happen.
Have we already reached out to them?
Not specifically for this, we know they have the technology based on assistance that they provided to our people when we've had some problems.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
I'm going to vote yes, although I would have liked to have known that we reached out to the city of Schenectady in advance of putting a resolution on for a public meeting. But yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Sunshine Resolution 126.22D. Clerk will read.
Water Conservation Public Awareness Campaign.
Any discussion?
Madam Supervisor, are there going to be costs associated with this? What is the plan? Is there something?
The plan, as I understand it right now, I'm thinking that, I'm sure you're aware that Mrs. Ryder in Shelmont School District has done many programs with her students about our water, our whole water system for that fact. And I'm sure she has a counterpart in Mahonison. So I don't think that that would cost anything. I think with the electives that our children take in school, that implementing a conservation and an education program would be fairly easy to implement. And I'm assuming that the Sierra Club, Friends of the Aquifer, our own conservation committee. I think these are all people that are interested in conservation, can disseminate information, and also it can help us to make pamphlets or things that would be available at Town Hall and also on the website. So I don't expect any cost to be necessarily associated with it, but obviously as we move forward, we would have to come back to the board and discuss it.
That sounds great. And we've reached out to those parties as well about moving forward.
I've talked to Mrs. Ryder about coming forward with different programs.
The DEC is also a great resource for that information.
Is there anything else on the question? Or, I'm sorry, forgot.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani on the question. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Sunshine Resolution number 126.22E. The clerk will read.
Request for grant funding from Senator Schumer, Congressman Tonko, Governor Hochul, and Senator Hinchey.
Any discussion?
Madam Supervisor, any reason why we did not list Senator Gillibrand and Assemblyman Santa Barbara?
Honestly,
If we're going to request, you know, we still have to request to all. You have to request to the Assembly as well, I would think.
I'll make a motion to add them in.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilmember Christo, seconded by Councilmember Mastriani
The
to,
other way around.
Other way around.
sorry, motion by Councilmember Mastriani and seconded by Councilperson Christo to amend the resolution to reach out, and I'm sorry, would you repeat the names
Senator
again?
Christine Gillibrand and Assemblyman Angelo Santa Barbara.
Any discussion? Okay. Or, I'm sorry, no, that was on the question. Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes to amend?
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes to amend.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes to amend.
5 yes to amend.
Motion passes. So now, on the Sunshine Resolution number 126.22E, do I have a, it's amended, as, I don't know if
Now we're gonna vote on it.
necessarily has to be
126.22E as amended.
as amended. Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Dodson, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Mastriani. On the question?
I have a question. This is for Deputy Supervisor Dodson. Deputy Supervisor, in your professional experience, have any other municipalities been granted an exemption of the mandate to install water meters when we got to this point?
For my projects, I can say no, but I'm not going to speak on the behalf of the DEC. I believe when they come to our public information meeting at the junction, that would be a great question to ask them.
Is that the next resolution? We're still
I don't know, I thought
we're
we
still
were,
in the grant
I'm
fund.
sorry.
we hadn't
Oh, I'm sorry.
the modification.
So
I think we gotta vote for that.
Sorry,
You're okay.
I'm all thrown off. Too many amendments, too many modifications.
So we gotta read.
Which means Diane's.
So wait a second, so we did amend it, now, what are you saying, what's
the
the
resolution was amended.
Correct.
And now the resolution has to be voted on. We've
Okay.
gotten,
Motion as amended was made by Mr. Dodson and seconded by Mr. Mastriani.
yes, the
No,
resolution
Mastriani.
as amended was offered by Member Dodson and it was seconded by Member Mastriani.
Correct.
Yep.
I can call for the vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Sunshine Resolution number 126.22F. The clerk will read.
Request to Senator Hinchey for exemption from state mandate.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Councilmember Mastriani. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Dodson. On the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Sunshine Resolution number 126.22G. The clerk will read.
Request review by Legislative Ethics Commission.
Madam Supervisor, as I did in the agenda session, I move to strike this motion. I want it as part of the record of the public meeting, not just the agenda session.
Okay. Is there a second to move this, to strike this resolution?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded, so it was a motion by Mr. Christou and seconded by Ms. Miller Herrera. Any discussion or on the question, rather?
I just want to, again, reiterate my feelings about this. I don't think there's any human value in this resolution. I don't think it's going to produce anything productive to attack the assemblyman. And there might even be some potential conflict of interest as someone on this dais could be running against him. So it seems to me more political than it does productive.
I think we need accountability for elected officials making statements, especially statements that inject as much fear into the public as the statements made by the assemblymen have made. And I think it needs a legislative review.
I think in light of our unanimous vote under 126.22E to add Kristen Gillibrand and Angelo Santa Barbara to our request for grant funding, I think we should try to work well with our counterparts at different levels of government and work to find solutions, not point fingers, not blame. I don't know how we go about saying that there is this sort of fear-mongering being brought up when in fact the show started right here at one of our meetings. So I'm going to vote no on this.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes to strike.
No,
Wait,
there's
wait,
To
no.
strike first.
Yes.
Right,
To strike
the motion
first.
to strike first.
I can't take it. So wait, are you on the 126.22?
Yeah, but
Okay,
there's a motion to strike.
correct,
Mr. Christo made a motion to strike.
Correct.
Seconded by Councilmember Miller Herrera.
correct.
Now you need to call that vote.
Okay.
Mr. Christo?
Yes to strike.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes to strike.
Mr. Dodson?
No to strike.
Mr. Mastriani?
No.
Mrs. Collins?
no.
So there's 3 no, 2 yes, does not get striked.
And
Right now.
Now do I have a resolution, do I have a motion for Sunshine Resolution number 126.22G?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Mastriani, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. On the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
No.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
No.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
Passes.
Motion
3 yes,
passed.
2 no.
Anybody ever get the feeling we name these the wrong things with Sunshine Resolution? Sunshine Resolution number 126.22H, clerk will read.
Clarifying communication with the residents.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani on the question?
Yes, on the question, I think we should look at waiting until after we have our public information sessions before sending out correspondence to the public. I believe that the supervisor and deputy supervisor's interpretations are not necessarily the same conclusions that every member of the public will draw. I think all the information should be provided to people to access, review on their own, and make their own conclusions without the opinions of the supervisor and deputy supervisor being added to it in a public mailing at taxpayer cost.
Any other discussion? I would like to just add one thing. When I talk to a resident on the phone or in person when they come into my office, I give them as many facts as I have. If I'm not aware of the facts, I remember this happened with the sewer district. A gentleman came in, I wasn't totally able to answer all of his questions, so I had somebody from DPW who was aware of our district sewer use, who answered all of his questions. He then started to ask financial questions. I made sure that the financial consultant came down. I wouldn't say that I ever offer my opinion. I can tell them what I know and, not my spin on it. This is the fact that I know, and so I don't think that it's necessarily that we would put in, that I would have even agreed to put something out that had a spin on it. I would put out what I knew to be the facts, but, everybody can still have their own opinion on this. Anything else?
Yes, if I may be heard.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is that recently the quote-unquote majority of the town board put out a press release at the cost of our taxpayers that may or may not have been misleading. I don't know, because I don't feel I have enough information to draw my own conclusion on these things. However, I feel that by authorizing the supervisor to send out a letter, we're basically doing the same thing. We're putting out the point of view of maybe 1, 2, or 3 members of the board without all the board members having the information available to them to draw their own conclusions. Therefore, I'm uncomfortable with authorizing the supervisor to send out this letter. I would be okay with the supervisor preparing a letter that all the town board members can review and agree upon before it's sent out, but I think just authorizing you to do it, especially in light of a press release that went out from 3 board members without the other board members even being notified that there was anything going out, I think is problematic, and I think it's a waste of taxpayer dollars. I think that we should provide a unanimous front in dealing with this and talking about it, and make sure that we are all working from the same facts moving forward. And the only way to do that is to all be on the same page and to all be part of this letter.
If I could just respond to that. In the spirit of cooperation, that would be the greatest thing in the world. You know, here we are up in the dais, you know, as a board. And so if we decide to pursue what's being suggested by Councilmember Miller Herrera, it could turn into this meeting tonight where there's a disagreement. And if there's a disagreement, at that point, does our public never get a piece of literature that goes out because we as a board can never decide on what that piece of literature should be? There's operation of government that needs to occur every day. And obviously, if there's a mandate or if there's a consensus among the board members to send publications out to our public, it's in the interest of our town to get the information out to our public. How that's viewed by an individual board member or the public is the beauty of getting information out to the public, is they get to hear more than one side. And of course, there was a side put out already that necessitated all these sunshine resolutions tonight. You know, again, we need to get information out to our public that's factual information, and it can be construed any way anyone wants, but the information needs to get out, and that's the intent of this resolution.
I have a question. I have a question for the town attorney. Is the supervisor required to have a approved resolution in order to send a letter out on her own behalf to the residents of the town?
No.
So she doesn't need this resolution to send out a letter if she wants from her?
From her, no. She doesn't need it, no. But the resolution's been offered and it's been seconded.
Anything else on the question?
I would make a motion to amend the resolution to authorize the town supervisor to prepare a factual chronological correspondence to be mailed to each resident after approval of the remainder of the board.
I'll second that motion.
Excuse me for a second, and we've been going back and forth, so forgive me. But I thought we already had a motion and a second on passing this resolution.
We did.
I could be wrong, it's been a little crazy tonight.
I can't keep
We
track.
did.
Either. That's what I have, and that's what Mr. Chamberlain has.
Was that a motion to amend?
No, that was on the
It's a motion to vote.
You already did.
I just got told, I just got told.
Well, I'll make the motion to amend section 2 of it, correct?
You can't.
Can I say something? You know, Councilmember Miller, we have every platform that's offered to us to be able to communicate to the public. We have this meeting, and if anything that the supervisor or the assemblyman or a fellow board member publishes that's factually false, we have an obligation and a duty to correct that, and that's what we're trying to do tonight, to inform the public that we are not pursuing water meters and that everybody can relax. As we learn information in anything that is conflicting, it's our duty to share it. So as we go forward tonight, tomorrow, the next meeting, we use every avenue we have to be able to inform ourselves and then to inform the people that we represent.
So there's been a resolution offered and seconded.
Correct.
I personally see no harm in allowing a vote on the motion to amend, because if it passes, then it's the action of the board to amend the resolution that has been offered already. So there's been a motion to amend. And I believe there's been a second, Mr. Christo?
Well, the motion to amend, if I'm understanding Councilwoman Hurd, is to take section 2 and just add the sentence to such correspondence subject to the approval of the town board, and then provide such reading. So that's the only thing she's asking, is that the board reviews the correspondence.
So can you restate, yeah, you can restate it so we can make sure that the record is clear.
So section 1. Section 1, the town board of the town of Rotterdam authorizes the town supervisor to prepare a factual chronological correspondence to be mailed to each resident, subject to the approval of the remainder of the town board.
Section 1, stand corrected. And I will second that motion.
By Ms. Miller Herrera, seconded by Mr. Christo.
This is to amend.
Right, to amend. Okay, and yep, and there's no discussion, then.
So now we gotta call for the vote.
And this is the motion to amend.
Amend on.
Correct? Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
No to amend.
Mr. Mastriani?
No.
And Mrs. Collins?
No.
No, does not pass.
I'd like to make a motion.
No, we technically have to actually have a motion. We still have the motion that was made on the regular, not amended, 126.22H. It was, motion was made, it was seconded, we were on the question, and if there's nothing else to be said, then we will move towards calling the roll. Is there anything else that, anyone else that wants to say anything about this resolution as it stands? Okay. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
In the interest of clarity, I am going to vote yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
I'm going to vote no, but only because I think it would be more appropriate for the supervisor to show us the letter before it goes out, instead of a vague reference to what she is going to write.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no.
Motion passes. Okay, now you folks get to talk and we get to rest. It's not privilege of the floor. I will ask you to kind of keep your remarks to around 4 minutes. All right, you'll kind of see my hand waving.
Peter, I'm sorry, Barkovich?
I'm sorry.
100 years when I'm dead and gone, it won't matter. First off, there's a lot of things I wanted to say about what was discussed tonight, but I'm only going to stick with this. I am very sorry that some members of the board are having a difficult time FOIAing government agencies. You're not alone. So, you know, depending on what side of whatever fight you're on, it's an issue. But me being not the complainer, me being the problem solver I try to be, I have come up with an idea called Rotterdam Victory Gardens. The town of Rotterdam is blessed with many parks. They certainly serve the community with sports and other entertainment. Why not expand their uses by using some of the area as a victory garden? These were very popular during World War I and World War II. I wasn't there, it's only what I read. Albany has one, and has had one for quite a while. And there are some gardens in this country that are still running since World War II. With the risk of food shortages, why not convert some of the unused, underutilized space for this project? Residents could opt in to running one, be part of running one of the gardens, and reap what they sow. Also, any town-owned property, such as abandoned or unused or unutilized, could be used. Personally, I'm starting my own much smaller garden on my own property. The town would only need to allow the use of parts of local parks, and I hate to say it, of course, a water source. Don't throw anything. Plants, seeds, labor, etc. should be supplied by those who choose to participate. They would also be the benefactors of the produce. The upcoming food crisis will make for interesting times. Perhaps we can reduce the pain by instituting a program such as this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob Godlewski?
Hey, want to call your wife? Get a call her. Why is it every time I come to this meeting?
Bob, can't hear you.
2 hours. Should I go to sleep? No, but you better pay attention. There was 2 newspaper articles last week. I was out of town when I got back. One was in the Times Union, one was in the Gazette, and I was confused, and I'm still confused, all right? I followed that water issue in 2015, and I did save all the records. And the question I have is this. When the previous town board agreed to sell water to Gilderland, was it predicated on them getting the DEC permit to pump more water? Mrs. Herrera, Mr. Cristo, do you have that answer?
Can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I
I
answer.
will repeat it again. A little louder. The mic, they shut
You
it
gotta
off.
talk close, Bob.
When the previous board decided to sell water to Gilderland, which I was against, in order to do that, you had to increase the permit to pump water. Okay? Was that the agreement that was made with DEC? In order for you to pump more water, you had to put meters in? Like I said,
I'm
I
trying
can go back and check the minutes, I could foil for it, but I'm looking for that answer, because I've heard there've been more grenades tossed here tonight, and I'm trying to focus on how did we get to where we are? All right, because the problem is, we can dwell in the past forever, she said, I said, they said, we got a real problem here. That's why I'm here, okay? I'm not here to get anybody irritated. My wife's gonna kill me, believe me, and I'm trying to find out when that vote was taken to sell more water to Gilderland. And we knew we had to go to DEC and get that permit. That's what's triggered everything. And that's what I'm trying to find out. Is it because we agreed to sign that agreement with DEC to put more water, that they bound us, and I used the word bound us, to put water meters in?
We're not supposed to engage, but I do want to answer. So my understanding, and maybe it wasn't the right understanding, I don't know. I was not in the meetings with DEC. I still am not in the meetings with DEC. My understanding was that we were already bound at that point to look at water meters in the long run based on prior wells coming online. My understanding was that there was no substantive change based on our agreement with Gilderland because DEC was in support of us having emergency interconnections with Gilderland, both for them and for our support. That later turned into the sale of water, but the original purpose, the original purpose was an emergency interconnect, which was as much for our benefit as for Gilderland's benefit.
I understand that.
So my understanding was there was already a requirement in prior water withdrawal modification permits or permit modifications for metering dating back to 2015.
Okay.
But that was before my time on the board, so you might be a better person to answer.
Well, I wasn't on in 2015.
No, but I'm sure you followed it closely.
Well, I
as
can
you
go
do.
back and check the records,
Yeah.
because at that time I had ambitions and I saved everything electronically.
I'm
But
gonna
to
come
me-
foil your house. I bet you have
I
everything.
get-
Everything I can't get out of
I
DEC,
get-
I bet you have.
I get $50 an hour. But my point is this.
Might be worth
I
it at this
would
rate.
strongly suggest you have the audios of those meetings.
I do, yes.
whether you were on the board or Mr. Crystal was, the board gave the supervisor that authority. Just like any resolution you pass or a and to me, that's where the problem is. So if that was part of the agreement, where we could sell water to Gilderland, it's a horrible decision down the road. We got $100,000, and the numbers that I see, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, we're talking over 8 million. And I hate to think that they got $100,000 in revenue, that we had to sign a document from DEC to put meters in. Now, that's said and done, all right? There were some comments made here about comments in the Gazette. And I'm gonna read, because I printed it out, and that's one reason why I'm here. The Gazette article on 4/7, some comments made by Assemblyman Santa Barbara. I'm pleased that my efforts have finally caught the Rotterdam Town's Board's attention to this problem they created. That is wrong. Absolutely wrong. And the Times Union inferred it too. And I will be sending a letter to the editor there. But that's absolutely wrong. And I agree, because here's my letter. And I got my neighbors asking me. I can't go for a walk and they're asking me. And I don't know the answers, all right? Because believe it or not, there are a few people that still believe me, okay? But anyhow, the other issue is, okay, and I have Mrs. Herrera's quote here from the paper, and I kind of agree with her a little. However,
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, I'd be.
I wish they would use their time to work on other levels instead of lobbing grenades, I think it was. I wish they would use their time to work with other levels of government to find a solution instead of lobbing grenades. Well, we won't talk about grenades tonight. But here's a comment that Mr. Crystal said, Evan, and I'm reading from the Gazette article. They're not my words. I want you to understand that. It is disappointing that political grandstanding and spending taxpayer dollars in such press releases has a priority over actually getting the work done. And I want you to hold that thought, because that was a very, very good statement. This letter that was sent by someone in Santa Barbara, all right? I don't know where he gets his information from, all right? When I was in good graces with my party, Paul Tonka was the assemblyman here for 33 years. I never remember him taking the initiative and going out to the taxpayers in this town and getting a petition that he has absolutely no knowledge about. That's grandstanding. Talk about spending taxpayer dollars, here's the envelope. And that's wrong. That is wrong. Thank you.
Chair Pollak?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I hope I'm mistaken, but I understand you want to raise my taxes by 20%.
First, really, for the record, you should state your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My name is Joe Pollak, resident of Rotterdam Junction. I pay about $75 a year for water. I know that's not the cost of water. Mr. Mastriani explained that to me. However, for my taxes to go up 20%, seems like an enormous amount of money. Puts me up in the $7,000 tax range for a little place out in the junction that most of you don't know where it is. I wouldn't mind paying that if it was my fair share. I love paying my fair share. However, we have water that's substandard. We come from an old well. I need a water softener just to keep my faucets running so that they don't harden up with all the calcium and iron. I've put in 2 so far at a cost of $4,000. Put in 2 furnaces so far since I've been there in 24 years. If I want to water my lawn, I have to go downstairs, shut off the water softener so my lawn doesn't get salt. My garden doesn't get salt. And if I want to wash my car, obviously, I don't want to salt my car. If I had the water that you're privileged to have here in the town, I'll gladly pay the extra $660. I don't have that. I also don't have sewers. It's kind of like living in the country, but being billed New York City prices. I don't think that's fair. I think that if you live in a town, it's the equivalent of driving a Cadillac and me driving a broken down Ford. Could be considered price gouging. But I object to the $600 increase, $600+ increase. I think that's an enormous amount of money, and it's a hardship for a lot of people that live in Rotterdam Junction. I'd like you to think about that, and maybe at one of our meetings we can have more input. As an aside, I think the finger pointing issue here shouldn't be continued by more finger pointing. And if you're going to mention it, don't keep doing it. The dysfunction here is really amazing. This is only the second meeting I've been to. I'm amazed. It's good to have difference of opinion. We should all have that. Not the loudest voice always wins. A little collaboration, not just with your own parties, but with all parties, is a very good point. If we have some cool heads, we have a lot of great ideas out here. And Ms. Collins, if you want to see Angelo Santa Barbara, bring a camera. He'll show up.
Ron Pitt?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make this quick. This isn't honest.
Yeah, you gotta put it close.
I went to
Ron,
the DEC.
you gotta put it close to you.
Pretty close?
There you
Okay.
go.
There is well, a lot of confusion.
Your name and
So I went to the DEC to find out, okay, are we at a point where, I think Mr. Godlewski mentioned this, are we at the point of no return with the water meters? Have we signed anything? And this is kind of mixed up here. That's what I wanted to know and I wasn't sure if the board had already gone so far that we couldn't reverse the water meters. I'll skip that to my next one. It may sound simple, but we were asking for $28 million for a water system. I think that the meters are the best way to conserve water. I think it puts it in the hands of the people using it so that they can see how much they're using. But to burden us with the cost of it is a mistake, and that's why people are against it, because that's how it came out. It's going to cost $600, here's your meter. So everybody's going to say no, but when you look up online the best way to conserve water, it's going to say meters. Now I wanted to know if the water bill, our water bill is $75 a month. I think you mentioned that we pay more.
Don't give me any ideas.
$214 more. That's our number. Whatever.
Every year it's different, but your January taxes do include water charges. There's a supplemental fee that's issued in June for $75, leading many people to the belief that water delivered to your house throughout Rotterdam only costs $75. There are additional charges in the January bill.
Okay. My point there is that if the water bill is $75, but it's being subsidized, if that's an okay word, by the Rotterdam town coming from the taxes, it kind of not only is it deceptive and confusing, but it doesn't really let people know what they're paying. Which, if the decision on a water meter now is confusing, because hey, I got a $75 water bill, so they should know. And by taking out of taxes, what's the difference? Why don't you lower the taxes? You know, you're not telling them, hey, some of the taxes is going and paying for your water. Niskayuna pays $180 a month. We need to compare it. The aquifer serves Niskayuna, Rotterdam, Scotia, and Glenville. So what do they pay in water, their monthly bills? I'm looking at you the whole time. Last time I looked at you the whole time.
Okay.
Anyway, that would be important to make those comparisons. I don't believe that when you do something, you're going to confuse the public. I've heard it maybe twice now. We don't put it out because it'll confuse the public. I think it's worse. The confusion has already been, you can't get more confused. And the most important part I want to mention is the Rotterdam Mall. You may have read how much I believe that Rotterdam Mall is precious to Rotterdam. It defines Rotterdam. There isn't a mall like that upstate New York. We've got, for a cultural place, because of the aquarium, the theaters, it's a music venue. Concerts can go there in the local. As a community center where you can go have a meeting, our town hall meetings there. There's enough room. As a, I know there's a few of these. As a senior center, I go there for my social life. I'm retired, I don't drink, and I do imbibe in a little something else, but I don't smoke cigarettes, I'll tell you that. But I go there and it's wonderful. I spend almost every day there and I talk to all the storekeepers there. I can name them more than I can name, well, I was going to name some, but I've grown to know a lot of them. For instance, the Little Vegas Chapel. Now, the value of that is, it's Americana. If that goes down, if you go in there, you should go in there and support it, because it's a chapel. It's a legal chapel for people to use, and I think that marriages, these big, highly expensive marriages, are going to go by the wayside in the next generation, and they're going to say, let's go down there and have a ball there. They have food, and I'm not pushing that, but I'm saying there are other places. There's a lot of not-for-profits. There are local big businesses. And I'm going to end this because I know everybody wants to go home. I went to, down at the end of the mall, there's a little Treasure Spree store run by Andrea and her daughter Jazz. She's 20. Andrea's just got injured, and she has one other worker. Andrea just fell from 7 feet and really got injured, so she's going to be a little bit hard up to get the store running with these two. So I went in there and I just walked. I had heard this story. I just went to got a burrito from there, and I walked in and I said, "Hey, can I buy you lunch?" After hearing just saying that, I gave it to her, and her thought, the look on her face was, "Thank you so much." It's just caring for that mall is what I say. It's more precious. It's a movie theater. You won't have to go down to the boat line. All these things. There's more things of value for that place. So I hope that the town of Rotterdam will somehow provide incentive for business there. Maybe a tax cut, maybe to, I know Metroplex exists, so maybe they can say, hey, we'll subsidize your rent, whatever it is. I'm going to let you go. Everybody wants to go home.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Melvin, next.
I don't hear too well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize. Melvin Mintz is my name. I reside on Helderberg Avenue. I really didn't have any intentions to speak tonight. That's why I'm sort of last on the list. I was early here and I could have signed up right away. It was very interesting tonight on hearing the broad spectrum of interest. And what I'm requesting came to my mind is that a synopsis list be created of the different issues pertaining to water in the town of Rotterdam. The issues were some of them brought up tonight of situations of is it Altamont Avenue that was brought up? I'm bragging about my age. At 86, going to be 87, it doesn't come quick to remember everything that goes on and was said. But I would like for the residents to first have a synopsis list of the problems. You cannot discuss and throw out a public hearing to the residents to come talk on an issue about meters, or should we have them, and this is a problem, or that's a problem. Yes, there will be public hearings, and I agree with it, but if we don't have a clear understanding of what has to be done in the town of Rotterdam
are we preserving water? What do we need to do in different areas? All the different issues, but in simple, clear list form, so that the residents can review the issues very clearly when there is a public hearing on this whole issue. Now, it's been stirred up, and there's different opinions of when it's going to happen 5 years from now, or what the costs would be, and so forth. And you, lovely lady, have some very good points of maybe you have been left out of some issues. I would love to see this board, you've gotten elected, and we do have a lawyer and a stenographer, to have a separate private meeting among you to go over some of these issues, rather than going around in circles here and making it difficult for us to sit for an hour and listen to your issues among yourselves. You have issues, and we all do. I've gone through it in my whole life. I'm not going to brag of all the things that I personally have done in sitting on committees and being in charge. I've been a boss my whole life, and I still am. So I'm requesting that you have a private meeting of yourselves and discuss some of these issues and clarify it. Republican, Democrat, we got to cut this shit out. Pardon my French. We have to cut it out for the benefit of the community. It's going on in this country, and we're going down the wrong path, in my opinion. And I'm asking you to have these 1 or 2 or 3 private meetings among you for a half hour, an hour, but not here taking our time, that we come here to listen and to learn. Very confusing, going around in circles. I have probably some other things, but the synopsis list, I know that Mr. Dobson has some things because we've spoken privately. I'm not afraid to call any of you privately. I'm not afraid to show up at your doorstep. But I don't want to have to do that.
But you're always welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for taking the time to listen, and taking the time to listen to everyone. But I'm asking you to start to work better together on these issues, not bring it here to the forefront. If she has been left out in the cold of some of the issues, as you have stated, or if there's something from the government, what made this country exist? How did it come about? Taxation without representation. You're supposed to be representing us, all of you, individually. And these other state and federal agencies, they love to put rules down on the people and pass things that we don't know what the hell they're passing. And you say you don't know some of the things that they're saying. And you say, well, let's take control of our town first and tell the state and the federal government, back off. Thank you.
Steve Grandstaff?
Steve Grandstaff, 415 Sharon Drive, Rotterdam Junction. Seems we were visited by 3 ghosts: water past, water present. I'm going to do water future. I'll try and keep this short. Water metering and water in general is an important topic to me and should be to all citizens for various reasons. It's an important topic and it deserves the attention that it's getting. We all feel that we're taxed to death, and no one likes to hear that we're going to need to lay out more money for something that's viewed that has always been there and always will be. The reality is the latter part of that statement is speculation. Water insecurity is a real thing, and a gentleman talked about the food crisis. So food insecurity, water insecurity is a real thing. There's no guarantee that in the future potable water will always be available to you when you turn on your faucet. In fact, it seems that every year during the summer and fall seasons, there are drought and other water emergencies somewhere else within the United States. Some scientists' studies say that within as little as 50 years, many regions of the United States could see their freshwater supply reduced by as much as a third. Of all the freshwater basins that channel rain and snow into the rivers for which we draw the water from and we rely on for everything from drinking and cooking, washing and cleaning, nearly half may be able to meet consumers' monthly demands by 2071. This means serious water shortages for Americans. Water insecurity is not only about short supply, but there are also water contamination issues to guard against. Two known active cases that are close to home are Hoosick Falls and Petersburg, New York, for example. You can just Google them and find out what the issues are down there with contamination. Closer to home, water from several different well fields supply all or most of the water for Glenville, Niskayuna, Rotterdam Junction, Schenectady, and Scotia. They also indirectly supply water to Ballston Lake and Clifton Park, and also Gilmore. Thus, the Great Flats Aquifer is a critical municipal water supply. It has enormous capacity, but it's very important that we consider and understand how the rate of pumping affects the level of the wells and the overall quality of the water. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I can almost guarantee you that over the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a steady increase in our consumption and our need to pump water out of these wells. So, it goes to water future. We need to take steps now to do what we can to preserve the integrity of the Great Flats Aquifer. Metering our water may not be a popular solution, but it's a solution that needs to be on the table. Until we have other solutions, we have to consider all solutions. We need to take steps now in an attempt to solve this potential problem before it becomes a serious problem. Conservation is a necessary step to protect the aquifer, and controlling consumption and cutting out waste will help ensure the water supply will be available for generations to come, for our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Steve, do you want that to be part of the record?
I'm not sure.
Just makes it clear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ron Schley?
Good evening. I guess I'm last, is that correct? So it's on me to get everybody out of here, correct? Okay.
State your
Oh, no,
name.
you want resolutions, that's great.
Your name and address.
Sony, it's Ron Schlag from 230 Autumn Run. I agree with a lot of the things that gentleman just said. I'm not thrilled about water meters. I'm not thrilled about paying anything more than I have to pay, honestly. But in reality, I think in Rotterdam, I've never lived in another municipality where you don't pay for water. People are saying, well, we're going to leave, we're going to move if we can't have our water for $75 a month. Well, then go ahead and move, because you're going to be paying for water wherever you go. We're living in a fantasy world here. I don't believe that my friend Pete back there would pay the same amount as I do with a 4-bedroom home, a pool, and a water sprinkler system. It doesn't make any sense. So, whereas I don't want it, it might not, it may be the inevitable. And we got to understand that. I also think that a lot of what's going on, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of fear going on. And I'm on the internet and I'm looking and I'm seeing what's posted. And I'm going to address one of the board members, because it's been rumored that one of the board members actually has a water meter business, that he's going to sell water meters. That's why he's for them. And I know you're not to address me, but it has been on the internet, it's been on different pages. So Mr. Dotson, do you or any of your companies or any affiliations sell water meters?
Oh, that's a no.
Okay, I didn't think so, but I think it's important that we put that out there. That's what's going around out there. And in regards to Angelo, all right, I got 7 posts for Angelo on his official webpage about this water metering thing. There's one about the Daily Gazette, and he circles it in red. You guys can look at it. You probably don't have Facebook. Oh, well, Jack, I know you don't. But it says, circled in red, It's only because I alerted the public about what was happening that they are now responding at all, he said. That's from the Gazette, okay? I got not one, not two, I got 3 of these yesterday, okay? 3. Jack, are you selling me 3 meters now? Is it?
Based on those 3 letters, man, I think I could.
Listen, man, this is 3 things. This is stupidity. This is ignorance, which I don't believe it is.
What are those 3 things?
Stupidity or ignorance.
No, I mean in your hand.
Oh, these are letters from Angelo Santa Barbara, a Dear Neighbor letter. And I don't think it's stupidity, I don't think it's ignorance. I think it is political pandering in a re-election year. This was sent out not to a household. This wasn't sent out one per household. This is sent out one per legal voter. 3. This is fear-mongering. This is bad. And I wish Mr. Galuski was here because I'm right on board with him. This isn't right. And people need to be held accountable. You know, if you really want to solve the problem, if you really wanted to solve the problem, you don't post on your social media. You don't send out these letters. You walk into the Rotterdam Town Board and you say, hey, I want to roll up my sleeves. Let's help me. I want to help you figure this out. Because the county did it with the sewer thing, and that was another landmine. This is another landmine. The Rotterdam Mall Town Board, whatever, the town hall is another landmine. How many more landmines are out there that people have to confront in this town? This is bad. And what was the cost? What did he spend to send this letter out to every registered voter in the town of Rotterdam?
What did we spend? Right.
What did we spend? You're right. So that's all I really have to say. Listen, this is getting tore up, going in the trash, right where it belongs, so I'm throwing it out because it's garbage. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you guys.
Is there anybody in the office before I close, is there anybody in the room before I close privilege of the floor that would like to speak?
I'd like to reclaim the rest of my 3 minutes.
I
I sound congressional, don't I? Okay, here we go.
well,
Why would we want to put meters because from what I understand, this whole metering thing has to do with leak detection, correct? So why don't we do the easy thing? Fix the pipes, then they won't leak. Why would we put meters on that would eventually end up charging residents for a leak that the town failed to put the finger in the dike? So let's fix the pipes before we start putting on meters and all this other stuff. It's simple. If we don't have the funds, then we go for grants. Okay? It's simple. Why are we complicating steamed rice once again? That's it. Thank you.
thank you. Anyone else for privilege of the floor before I close it? Closing privilege of the floor, we'll now go on to resolutions.
Madam Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion that we take resolutions 12722 through 14022 and accept them as a consent agenda.
I understand why you're saying that, Mr. Christo, I do, but I hate when we do consent because I feel like that we should
Because these
have
are
a tape
housekeeping
recording.
items. Right, but these are all housekeeping items, and I just thought, in the interest of...
I think they'll go quickly, but I mean, bring the motion, right to.
Remember when the resolutions earlier wanted to be grouped, and you were like, no, we need to discuss them individually?
No, I'm
Why are
sorry.
you doing it now?
You're comparing apples and oranges, sir.
Right, no.
The other one was because
Okay.
these are housekeeping items, bid acceptance, things like that.
Okay, we're gonna finish up the evening. So if you want to make a motion, Mr. Christo, you're more than welcome to.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, would you repeat the motion to make sure that the clerk
To
has heard
accept
it?
resolutions 12722 through 14022 as a consent agenda.
Okay. A motion has been made by Mr. Christo and seconded by Mrs. Miller Herrera. Is there anything on any discussion?
I mean, I think if we're gonna,
Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I think there is an opportunity to speak briefly as the supervisor on what would be covered under the consent agenda so that everyone can be aware.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo for the consent agenda.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yeah.
Mr. Dotson.
No.
Mr. Mastriani.
No.
Mrs. Collins.
No.
Does not pass.
Let's do it.
Resolution 12722, the clerk will read.
To accept bids and award contracts for highway materials, highway pipes, watertight end sections, and plastic underground perforated pipes.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second? I'll second it by Mrs. Collins. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution number 12822, the clerk will read.
To accept bids and award contracts for highway materials, manhole grates, and frames.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christo.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution number 12922, the clerk will read.
To accept bids and award contracts for highway materials, crushed limestone, gravel, fill, and sand and road sand.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, second. I'll second it by Mrs. Collins. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution number 13022, clerk will read.
To accept bids and award contracts for highway materials, tree cutting, and removal services.
Anything on, any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, second. Second by Mr. Mastriani, or Mr. Christo, I'm sorry. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution number 131.22.
To
clerk will
approve,
read.
oh, I'm sorry, to approve budget transfers to the 2022 budget.
Okay.
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christo. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passed. Motion number 132.22, the clerk will read.
To authorize change order number 1 for Princetown Road water improvements.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christo. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Resolution number 133.22, clerk will read.
To authorize amendment number 1 for construction, engineering, and inspection services for Whispering Pines.
Any discussion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christo.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 134.22, clerk will read.
To declare lead agency for CEQA a review for construction of the Rotterdam Junction stormwater improvements.
Any discussion? Motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Christo. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo.
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera.
Yes.
Mr. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani.
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins.
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passed. Resolution number 135.22, clerk will read.
To authorize a 1-month contract with the Martin Group for the month of April 2022.
Any discussion?
I'll move.
I have a question. Supervisor Collins, you sent an email out on April 5th indicating that you were looking to potentially extend this contract. I was wondering if, I believe I responded that I was okay
Yes.
in either direction, and that it really depended on whether you
found the services to be helpful or not, and I was just wondering
I would
if
like
that
to-
is the case.
Yes, I would like to extend it for a month because I'd like to see what they can put out so that the public does have more information, even if it's just another source. I know we put it on our website and on our Facebook page and everything else, but maybe it's just another source to reinforce the May 11th meeting out in Rotterdam Junction. That's also going to be an informational meeting. And if we get it out early enough in the month of April, maybe people can start planning their calendars.
And
So,
we'll-
for right now, yes, I'd like to, see what value we feel. And I would like to, by the 15th, evaluate again from all the board members to see if you feel that we are getting value out of it.
Okay.
Do you intend to use their services to get out information about the water bills?
We had I would like to do that. There seems to just be a question as to make sure that we have it worded correctly, and then given to the board and making sure that everybody's okay with it. Okay? Any other discussion?
I made the motion, waiting for a second.
Motion by Mr. Costello.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson on the question. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution number 136.22, the clerk will read.
To increase the hourly rate of seasonal summer laborers.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
Who was it?
Mr. Christo. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Dodson, any on the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution 137.22, the clerk will read.
To authorize the implementation of a cloud-based backup solution.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Costello. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani on the question. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution 138.22.
To accept revenue for the town clerk's office for March of 2022.
Any discussion?
I'll move.
Motion by Mr. Costello. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Mrs. Collins on the question. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution number 139.22.
To accept town board meeting minutes of March 23rd, 2022.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani on the question. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion passes. Resolution number 140.22, the clerk will read.
To accept bid and award contract for chlorine gas.
Any discussion?
I'll move.
Oh, okay. Motion by Mr. Christou.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson on the question. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera?
Yes.
Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
5 yes.
Motion, resolution passes, motion passes. Okay, is there anything on miscellaneous? I know you're running late. Is there
Madam
anything-
Supervisor, under committee reports, if I
Yes.
just may contribute a couple of things.
Yes.
The Veterans Committee people and the parade people met, and special thanks to Meggie Griffin for kind of putting all that together and making it in an organized fashion. Your notes were very well. And the Memorial Day Parade is scheduled for Thursday, May 26th, 2022. This parade is scheduled to start at 6:30 p.m. I'm assuming this is on the website, or will be.
Yes.
Okay, and then the parade, and then the Memorial Day ceremony here is on Memorial Day. Is it 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock? 2 o'clock. This should be a nice event. It's been a few years since we were able to pull the parade off due to COVID, so I think we have some good opportunity to kind of get the public back out into some sense of normalcy. First Monday of the month, we met with the Parks Committee. We have the annual boat launch canal cleanup
event. I'm assuming this is on the website or will be. Again, they called it the Kiwanis Boat Launch, but I learned that I guess the Kiwanis hasn't had much to do with it in the last 4 years. So I also did, trying to get through a channel to get to Brian Stratton, who is the Canal Authority Commissioner or Chairman, whatever his list is. So hopefully we can maybe get some state funding to kind of spruce that up a little bit as well.
I can just interject, we do have some state funding to do improvements there.
Good.
Currently.
Good.
And we're gonna start working on it soon.
Good, very good. So Rosalind Warwick is the event coordinator for this, and you can also contact Paul Cook. The Parks Committee also discussed a little bit of a mission statement and trying to create some standards. There seems to be some confusion with some of our parks where our leagues play, and my counterpart, Mr. Mastriani, can interject if I'm not representing this correctly, but we're trying to define what is the town's responsibility when it comes to those ball fields and what is the league's responsibility, so there's clarity, so everybody has some sort of direction and they know what to do. I believe things that are involving infrastructure like drainage and the dugouts, structurally sound and safe. Anything that involves safety, in my opinion, should fall on the town, but we have to build some sort of a communication where they know what to expect, and if they need help with fundraising, we can reach out to the community for that. But most importantly, the things that belong to the town, we gotta get them on a priority list and get some of that stuff done. Some of the standards would include signage, fencing, playground equipment, picnic tables or grills, standardizing the sports courts, the fields, a pavilion, bathrooms. A lot of the bathrooms need upgrading in these parks, storage facilities for park equipment and greenery, and working towards handicap accessibility. This seems to be a topic of discussion as well. That's all I have.
I have something, and I didn't get a chance to put it out. I know that we have a surprise grand marshal. I think that maybe Rosalind talked to you about it. Did she
Yes.
talk to either?
Yes.
Well, Joe, all right. But we're hoping to find somebody who has a convertible, something that has a back seat, like a Cadillac convertible or any of the older cars where we have a back seat. We would like to have the grand marshal in a convertible. So if anybody knows anybody that has a convertible and would be willing to drive.
You look at me like you know.
Do you?
My father has a '94 Mustang convertible with a backseat.
All right, yeah, would you all, ask him?
I'll ask if he's available then.
So, yes, and
Will the town provide the gas card?
My father can afford the gas, it'll be fine, he can donate it to the town. He likes to drive around anyways.
But I really want to thank the Parks Committee. I think you guys have been doing a great job with the residents too. And I also think the other, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was talking to Mrs. Miller Herrera, and she has some really great ideas for parks too.
She always does.
So, yes, I really appreciate all of your input from everybody, so thank you. Any other committee reports? Miscellaneous? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the
I'll make
meeting.
a motion to adjourn.
And I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All agreed.
Aye.